Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Defender. Great to be with everybody again. So glad you guys are with us again and spending a little bit of time with us. We get to spend some time with you as well. I have to really just a big shout out to all the comments recently. Just great, phenomenal comments. Everything from the SIG DAK to the Smith & Wesson 15 to the H&Ks. Just great interaction with everybody. As I've said before, that's my favorite part of this channel and doing all this is to hear the stories and the legacies and the inheritance, the pistols that are handed down and all that. So just great comments. Please keep them coming. Again, loved interacting with everybody. Please continue to subscribe. Please like the channel, share it among your networks and all that kind of thing if you like it. Today we're taking a little bit of a departure because I'm not really a Glock guy. Not that I don't like Glocks or don't think they're actually pretty amazing pistols for what they were designed to do and how they were designed and the simplicity in their engineering and all of that. I mean, I tip my hat to Glock and the amount of Glocks that are in duty holsters and have been for decades. I mean, it's just a proven product platform. It may not be the sexiest, it may not have all the latest features, it may not be the most ergonomic, all of the things that kind of Glock gets a bit of a rap for, but at the end of the day, as probably most of you know on this channel, they just work, and people who have to bet their lives with them or on them on a daily basis, I don't think are rarely, if ever, disappointed. So again, a little bit of a departure. And also, as a secondary note, if you thought this was a Glock 19, you would be absolutely excused in making that assumption because this is not a Glock 19. This is a Glock 25 in 380 ACP. However, it is on a Gen 3 19 platform. And in fact, the specs are identical. I actually had to look it up just to make sure myself on Glock.com. Glock website, and just to double check the Gen 3 Glock 19 specs versus the Gen 3 Glock 25 specs, and they are identical in every category except weight. And I'll kind of get into that on the deep dive. I'll also give you a little history on this firearm, only in the sense that it's unique that it's been made since 1995, but wasn't and couldn't be imported into the US. So we'll get into all that. I'll explain a little bit about how it shot and also explain a little bit about where I think this really fits. And this is a really, really interesting firearm now that Glock has brought to the US market in 380 caliber, because I think this pistol solves, if you will, a couple of the ills or concerns that people have with the 380 ACP cartridge. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into this Glock 25 in our deep dive. So as I just introduced, we want to talk about what I think is a pretty neat little firearm. Not so little, it's a compact, of course. But this turned out to be, and I'm already getting ahead of myself in the video, but this turned out to be a really, really fun firearm to shoot. Just an enjoyable platform and cartridge, and we'll get into all that in the deep dive. But I mean, I just have to straight away, this was just fun. Kind of like going to a range and shooting 22 fun, or just 38 fun, right? It's a very easy to shoot. You generally shoot well when you're at the range. It's just a kind of a pleasant experience. This is exactly kind of where I put this Glock 25, but there's a couple other things that we really want to unpack on this video, so we're gonna get into that straight away. Of course, we have a clear and safe firearm, so we'll get that out of the way right away. So this is, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I came into it and how it shot and my thoughts on 380 and why I think, like I said in the intro, this pistol might kind of clear up some of the ills of 380 ACP. Maybe not completely, but I think we're getting very, very close here from a self-defense standpoint. So the history behind this, and again, just looking at it, and again, you would say, wow, this is a Glock 19, because it basically is. It really is a Glock 19 Gen 3, but in a 380 ACP platform. And the interesting thing about these 25s were that they've been built, obviously, as a Gen 3 since the 90s, in fact, 1995. and they were generally only supplied to, as I understand it, the South American market and some European markets. They were built in Europe. They were built in the up until this point. This one was built in Georgia, and that's why it's allowed into the U.S. now. But these were built in Europe, and I don't understand the point system. I think it actually goes back to a 1968 law where the U.S. was trying to ban cheap, small imports, like a Saturday night special or whatever it was termed, probably in the 70s or late 60s. But this gun, unfortunately, kind of still fell into this kind of archaic law from the 60s, and so it was never brought into the U.S., but was very popular in South America. And I guess the part of that was that for civilians, they weren't allowed to have a quote unquote military cartridge. And so the 380 was not considered a military cartridge or designated as such there. And so that's how this became so popular. So that's kind of its history. The 380 itself, ACP, automatic Colt pistol cartridge, the bullet itself, the cartridge, I should say, goes all the way back to 1908. So this is a fairly old cartridge design, of course, like many cartridges are. Modern, minus some more modern cartridges like the 40 Smith & Wesson. But the 380 ACP or 380 Auto, both terms are kind of used interchangeably, goes all the way back to 1908. So that's a little history for you on the 380 and this Glock 25. So, and again, we don't have a massive amount of history here like we do on some of the other firearms on this channel, but still this connection back to the South American market and it's basically its ban into the US was really interesting. So that's that side of it. How I kind of stumbled into it, I was actually maybe contemplating looking at a Glock 19. I was just doing some research and I just came across the fact that Glock introduced this 25 in 380 in December of 2023. It had completely missed me. I called some friends of mine. They completely missed the press release and all of that. So, it's a very recent introduction. A couple points to that as well. I've heard some statements about that it's going to be limited production. I don't know if that's true or not. It certainly could be limited production to see if there's an appetite for this firearm in the US market, and then maybe it will become a mainstream like every other Glock. I certainly hope that's going to be the case because it would be just a shame if this Glock comes and goes and then you can't get it anymore. I think it's going to take off. I really do. And for all the things that we'll talk about. However, if you're interested in 380 and looking for a compact platform and not a pocket pistol like a Ruger LCP or maybe a little SIG 365 and 380, this is really it. I think this is a neat little platform. And so that's kind of why it's here. We'll see how long it's here. I think if you have any interest in this after the video or you're seeing it, I would go get one. The guns are just south of $500 brand new, right at 500. So that also puts it at what, 150, maybe even more than a new Glock 19, just to kind of put it into perspective. And again, so this kind of, I drifted off from that story a little bit. I was looking at Glocks, came across this statement or article that these had been introduced in December as a 380. One of my family members really, really enjoys 380. Not so much on the 9mm, but always liked the Glock 19. In fact, every time she shot it, it was her favorite pistol, but again, always kind of leaned towards the 380. We had a Smith & Wesson EZ, which really was nothing wrong with that firearm. I never personally took to it overall, but again, it worked. She liked it, all that good stuff. But when I read this article, I was like, wait a minute, this is exactly maybe what we're looking for. This could be the perfect package. So it's kind of how it made it across my desk and then onto the video. So that's kind of all of that side. I know you guys like the specs, and the specs are really important on this one. Just before we kind of do a deep dive and walk around on it, because they are identical. They're identical to a Glock 19 Gen 3. And so the specs are, I'll rattle them off. The barrel is 4.02 on the Glock 25, same on the 19. Length is 7.36, same on the Glock 19. Width is 1.26, same on the Glock 19. The height is 5.04, same on the Gen 3 Glock 19. The weight is just ever so slightly without a magazine is 22.75 and 23.68 according to the Glock website. I don't know what that very small variance there of what does that turn out to be, a half an ounce or an ounce or whatever that is. But at any rate, that's those are the specs. So they really, really are. It is identical to a Glock 19 Gen 3. And again, I am not a Glock aficionado. Again, as I stated, all the respect in the world for what they're capable are and their longevity and duty holsters and all that stuff like we talked about. But I am not an expert from the first ones to the Gen 3s and the Gen 4s. I know a little bit more about Gen 4 and Gen 5, but again, I can't rattle off all the complexity of the different product and engineering changes. So we're going to kind of keep it a little bit basic. But again, I think more importantly, just telling you a little bit about this pistol, how it's shot, and where I really, really think now it fits in a self-defense, kind of space. But again, let's just do a traditional walk around because we always do. So Glock 25. So we've got our traditional Glock slide. It has its traditional color. I always like this color, this matte gunmetal gray, right? Almost what else can you call it? Stamped Glock 25 USA 380 auto. No front serrations. Classic nice Glock rear serrations. We have almost no sophistication to the machining of the slide, if you will, like some of the other guns that we have on this channel where there's kind of almost maybe an elegance to them. And on this side, we have rear serrations, we have serial numbers matching, and it looks like a little Georgia stamp there. I actually didn't take a magnifying glass to that before I had done the video. And then, of course, a nice size extractor there. Glock sights, what do we want to talk about? These are the standard plastic rear white U and the white dot front. They are about as, I don't know, they're useful in a basic sense, but I think Glock's opinion on these, if I understand it correctly, is they feel that sights are so personal to individual shooters that they know that they're going to be changed out anyway, so why put an enormous amount of effort into sights? I guess that's certainly one possibility. I think the other possibility is they're just keeping costs down. Obviously, you can get other Glocks with better sights, full metal sights, high-vis sights, all that kind of stuff. So I think this is, again, just kind of your basic stock platform. Nothing else really to talk about the slide, of course. As we just kind of work down onto the frame, again, this is a Gen 3 frame. You've got a rail here for whatever accessories you like. Again, any accessory that would fit a Glock Gen 19 is going to fit all of this. And maybe that's another great point, that because they have used this Gen 3 Glock 19 platform, all of those things are going to work. Holsters, different sights, all the accessories you can think of that are around for Glock, and of course there's just a gazillion of them, are going to work with this Gen 3 Glock 25 in the sense that it's dimensionally the same. Certainly an internal component wouldn't work, but when we're talking about sights and holsters and accessories like that. We have a decent size trigger guard. I will say the trigger is exactly like any other Glock. That was one of the first things I did when I picked it up in the gun shop and asked permission to dry fire it. It performed like any other Glock trigger, so there's no surprises there. You have a traditional kind of small, maybe not the greatest mag release. The finger grooves, which I actually like and actually semi-prefer. The only other Glock I own is a Gen 419, and I've always liked that. It just fits my hand. I know it doesn't work for everybody. You have some nice stippling here. Very, again, just traditional setup for Glock. Your slide stop, slide release. This would be your slide takedown mechanism. There is no grip panels or backstrap panels or anything like that because this is a Gen 3. So very Glock-like in that regard. And of course, again, everything looks like a Glock 19. Except this is a 25 in 380 auto, and it is cool. So again, as I kind of stated, how it shot great. Multiple different kinds of ammo, a couple boxes, and it felt and performed like any other Glock I had shot, and of course, just like my Glock 19 Gen 4. There were no surprises. I didn't expect any, but what was great was just the soft shooting, pleasant experience. And so again, this is kind of, we're getting into the other part of this video that I wanted to talk about. Where does this fit? First of all, I think it fits in very, very well with anybody that is recoil averse for whatever reason. Don't like 9mm, and certainly don't like maybe some of the other larger calibers, but find 380 acceptable to them. I think anybody with any kind of hand injury, arthritis, just small hands in general, maybe age, of course. I really don't want to bring gender into it because I don't think that's fair. But just smaller hands in general, of which I kind of fall into that camp. I have small to medium-sized hands. So this was just fun to shoot and pleasant to shoot. I can't imagine somebody picking this up, putting a box or two through it and going, wow, that wasn't fun. It just is. It's just a little treat. I actually liked it maybe a little bit better than 22. I mean, 22 is so simple that, it's almost a little mundane or boring to me at times. This was great. This was like kind of taking a 38 revolver to the range. You've got just enough, recoil there to make it a little challenging for an advanced shooter or a gun person, if you will. But someone who isn't overly familiar with guns, they're going to find this very, very pleasant to shoot. So I think it definitely has a place in the market. I hope it stays. I hope it's very successful. Just, again, you can hear it in my voice. I can't say enough about how much fun this was. And so now let's kind of move into the self-defense range. So I think, the 380 has always been, and it's also been considered the short 9, I think it's called in Europe. And I get it, it's definitely a bit more of an anemic round. There's definitely this lighter, less capability than 9mm. And I think where two of the things that this gun helps solve with that cartridge is, one, the barrel length. We're not talking about, little pocket pistols that are really having a hard time generating enough velocity to actually get then bullets to perform. I think what we're going to find here is very, very good performance out of a 4-inch barrel. And I went ahead and watched, it had to be more than a half a dozen videos, probably closer to 10, maybe a dozen on 380 ammunition, self-defense ammunition, and all the different videos and shooting into ballistic gel and the FBI, requirements and the denim and all of that. And of course, some great videos out there with where we have, ribs attached to a watermelon with t-shirts and all that kind of stuff. And if you look at all of the videos had some level of variance. Somebody could get federal HST to perform really well on their particular day, and then somebody else wouldn't. And, the tests weren't that far off. So you just kind of, wonder what was happening that day or what those reasons were. But if you kind of look at those videos, it was, 10, 12, 14 inch. And of course, the FBI minimum standard is 12-inch penetration. And what you were seeing were, at times, people were getting 12 and 14 inches of penetration with the 380. And still, out of some of these micro, or, there's a 3-inch barrel on one. I think this 4-inch barrel on this Glock 25 is really going to make the difference. Not that it's a massive difference, but, really help get the velocity and keep the velocity up of your standard 380 self-defense. And, the two I have here, and I haven't shot these yet because I just picked it up, but I'm a big Federal guy. I've just always had good luck with Federal, have read a lot of good things about Federal, have seen it issued in law enforcement and all that kind of stuff. And these were the two that I picked up. There was an HST 99 grain, interesting, and then the HydroShock 90. I believe there's also a Hydroshock Deep, and I seem to recall there's even one more Federal option in the 380 auto, although it's not coming to me. So those are probably what I'm going to work with. There's the critical defense. I think there is one. Is it an Underwood maybe? Is a plus P, which may be very interesting in this. Again, maybe not for a recoil averse person. In fact, one of these, and just see if I can find it again really quick. Yeah, the Hydroshock 90 says low recoil. So, I mean, there you go. Maybe this is the perfect defense round for that. So, we're talking about performance of the 380 and where it's kind of fallen down. We've covered the velocity part with this. The other part that I think people were concerned about was capacity. Again, if you're down to a small little micro pistol, you may have limited capacity. What Glock did with this was give you 15 rounds. So it's exactly the same capacity, strangely enough, as a Glock 19 in 9mm, except we have 380. Also, this very cool magazine that's very visually and tactically, not tactically, I can't think of the word. I can pick it up if I had my eyes, closed. This ladder design that they came up with on the magazine, and of course stamped Glock and 380, so no question there. But I think so this adds that next part about, okay, now I have a compact platform that I can shoot well, good sight radius, 4-inch barrel. I'm going to get good velocity and performance out of my 380, and now I have 15 plus 1, and of course you get a second magazine with the firearm as well. So I think you're really set up. I mean, I don't think, again, you can go back and forth on this 380 topic, but I don't think anybody wants to stand in front of somebody and take a 380 round hollow point, and I don't think anybody wants to take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds from somebody. That's probably not going to be a survivable event. So, do we have this maybe initial knockdown capacity or capability? Maybe not. Do we really have stopping power? That's a whole nother topic of discussion. I think that's a lot of in our industry and the community has kind of poked enough holes in that there, that may be a bit of a myth. Certainly one shot stop. Not that it doesn't happen. I just watched a video from about a year ago with a state trooper who did a one shot with a subject coming out of a pickup truck that was armed. So absolutely it does happen, but I think most people realize that you're going to have to put multiple rounds on target to get that effect, and I think this firearm is going to accomplish that. 15 rounds, very easy to stay on target. As we said, the kind of the light, the light recoil of the 380, you are going to be able to crank off rounds very quickly, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds into that particular adversary or target. And I think we have then a platform that provides self-defense capability. Certainly, if you're capable of 9mm, shooting that and enjoy that, and 40 and 45 and 357 SIG and 10mm, all of that, fantastic, because you probably will get slightly better results initially. But for somebody that isn't capable of that or doesn't want to be capable of that, in terms of their physical maybe issue, arthritis or age or what have you, I think this is a great platform. I really do. I think I will be shocked and saddened if Glock doesn't hit it out of the park with this, because I think it's just a great firearm. The pistol mags, by the way, are also very inexpensive. I think they're like $25. I already picked up a couple extra just because, again, this limited production, just in case this doesn't go the way I hope it does. And I just wanted to get a couple. And again, at $25 for a SIG and HK guy, it's extremely cheap. Or as a collector, when you're trying to find mags for a gun that isn't made anymore, I'm just shocked that these are $25 and very traditional, Glock mags in that regard. What else do you get? Just a quick note there, of course, for someone who isn't overly familiar with Glock, especially if you're looking at this 380. This is a classic Glock setup, plastic box, and yeah, you get what's normally in here: a little cleaning brush, a lock, paperwork, and a assistance for the for loading the mags, which I never use. So that's, you know, that's what you're going to be getting in your Glock box. And so very traditional there, no mystery there. Just back to the firearm real quick. Again, just can't say enough about it, as you guys heard in the video. I think the summary is just really what I just talked about. Just an inexpensive gun, right? At brand new at $500, or certainly within, maybe not inexpensive, but let's just call it within quite a few budgets. And there's a ton of used guns that are sold all day long, all the time at, you know, $450, $499, and this is, you know, pretty much where this is at, but as a brand new gun. And the ease of shootability, the fun of it, even for me, could even be a platform to start somebody, right? If you've got a younger or newer shooter, maybe you start with 22 and you gradually work them up to see where their comfort zone is. Again, kind of like for a family member, maybe you don't get really past 380, but if they work on this enough, you know, maybe again, the comfort level finally allows them to get to 9mm. But if not, we're back to 15 rounds. And I think we've got a really, really good, solid platform here, in an extremely reliable platform that you can do a lot with. So hope you guys liked the video. It'd be great to hear your comments. Can't wait to hear them on this. If you guys are picking them up and girls are grabbing these and trying to pick them off shelves. I probably contacted 4 shops locally, maybe a few more, maybe 4, and only 2 had them. So, you know, maybe 50%, maybe actually, I think it was 5 or 6 shops actually I contacted. And I think only 2 said they had them in stock. So that's, you know, again, maybe this limited run is there. At this particular point, there's something to that. But hope you guys liked the video. Great to be back with everybody again. Can't wait to hear everybody's comments. And we'll see you again very, very soon on the Daily Defender.